Chapter 6. The narration of the story of Ram Janam celebrations. I bow down to Sri Ganesh. I bow down to Sri Saraswati. I bow down to the Guru. I bow down to the family deity. I bow down to Sri Sita Ramchandra. I bow down to Sri Sadguru Sai Nath. Whether in the worldly or spiritual life, whenever the Sadguru is the captain of the ship, he will steer the ship along with the passengers to the opposite bank. The very word Sadguru immediately brings to mind Sai, as he stands in front of me and blesses with his hand on the head. As soon as the boon-giving hand, which has the uri from the Dhuni, touches my head, my heart goes into a rapture with inner happiness and my eyes brim over with love. How marvelous is the touch of the hand of the Guru, which has the power to destroy the subtle body, which is burnt to ashes at the touch of the hand, the subtle body which otherwise cannot be burnt even by the inferno at the dissolution of the world. It can even steady the minds of those who are annoyed even by an accidental mention of God or by his tales, and speak intemperately. As soon as he puts his lotus-like hand on the head, the accumulated sins of many previous births are washed off and the loving devotees of Sai are purified. Having seen the comely features, you are choked with extreme bliss. Tears of happiness roll down and the heart is overwhelmed with Ashta-sattvic bhav. He awakens the thought of oneness. The inner happiness reveals itself, and it dissipates the twofold nature because of the oneness with God and evenly spreads unity. When one starts reading the sacred books and the Puranas, the Sadguru comes to one's mind at every step. Sai is Rama and Krishna and makes us listen to his own life story. When listening to the Bhagavat Puran, Krishna himself becomes the embodiment of Sai, singing the praises of Uddhava for the good of his devotees. Even in casual conversation, incidents and stories of Sai's life unexpectedly are recalled to illustrate a point. Intent on writing. When you take up paper and pen in hand, words elude you, but when he makes us write at his command, it becomes difficult to cope with the flow of the words. The moment ego raises its head, he immediately suppresses it. And by creating the awareness of higher consciousness, he brings to the disciple a sense of fulfillment. When you surrender to the powerful Sai, body and soul, virtue, wealth, love and deliverance are attained without striving and unasked. The fourfold path of karma, action, jnana, knowledge, yoga, yogic powers, and bhakti, devotion, though each is distinct from the other, all lead to the same goal. The path of bhakti is the thorny path, like the path through the prickly babul forest. It is full of pits and potholes. 1 or 2 steps in the right direction takes you really close to God. You should avoid the thorns and step forward. You will reach the destination without fear. This is the only remedy, says the Guru Mai very clearly. When the orchard of the mind is watered by devotion, detachment will grow, knowledge will blossom, union with the Supreme Spirit comes to fruition and joy will burst forth, avoiding the cycle of birth and death. As a certainty, the primeval Supreme Soul is self-existent. It is the threefold concept, Sat Chit Anand, truth, consciousness and bliss. It appears by transformation, in the visual image, and, actually, manifests for the sake of the devotees. As Brahman became manifest through its threefold attributes, Maya became active and stirring. Sattva, righteousness, Rajas, activity, Tamas, inertia, exhibited her qualities. When a particular shape is given to clay, it is called a pot rightfully, but when the pot breaks, it loses its name, form and identity. The whole world is born of Maya and both are cause and effect to each other. Thus Maya itself manifests, as it were, with different limbs in the form of the world. If you look at the nature of Maya, before the existence of the world, nothing is apparent. She was dormant in the Supreme Consciousness, though residing in it she was not perceivable. Even if perceivable, it is actually the Supreme Self. When it is not perceivable, then also it is the Supreme Self. Thus Maya is the Supreme Self. It cannot be distinguishable from the Supreme Self. In the beginning Maya created lifeless, immovable static objects from the inertia quality and completed the first part of her action. Afterwards, when the Supreme Self was conjoined with the Rajoguna of Maya, it revealed the mind of percipience of essential activities, endowed with the aspects of both. Later on, out of the Sattva-guna of Maya, was created the intellect, which when combined with the divine bliss of the Supreme Self completed the whole process of creation. Thus, Maya, susceptible to great modifications, till she is motivated towards activity, does not create the things which are above mentioned and the three gunas remain unmanifest. Maya cannot be apparent unless she performs actions according to the three gunas. She can exist without appearance and practice non-action, passivity. Maya is the creation of the Supreme Being, while the universe is the creation of Maya. All this is Brahman means that the world, Maya and the Supreme Being are all united and one. Those who keenly desire and are intent on realizing this unity should refer to the Vedas and the Shrutis. The Vedas, Shastras, Shrutis, Smritis, teachers and scriptures give us the knowledge, the discriminating intellect and ultimate happiness. In the home of my devotees, food and clothing will never be lacking. This is an assurance given by Sri Sai and the devotees were aware of this. Those who wholeheartedly worship me and lovingly always serve me, I look after their well-being. This I know to be my motto. This is also the affirmation of the Bhagavad Gita. Sai says to accept this as universal truth. There will never be shortage of food and clothing. Therefore do not hanker after them. One should seek honor at the door of God, and should beg only from a God. Ask only for His blessings. Worldly prestige should be left aside. Why are you satisfied by the honor given to you by society? And why are you infatuated by that? Rather seek through intense devotion to move your chosen deity to compassion and to express your joy through copious streams of sattvic bhav. May you find joy in such striving. Let all the faculties be seized with such a devotional urge so that the passions of the senses may be transformed completely and sprout devotional worship. What desire will then remain? May such devotion be your constant preoccupation, leaving no relish for anything else. May the mind be engaged in constant chanting of my name and let everything else be forgotten. Then there will be no thought of body, home and wealth. The heart will be fixed on the infinite happiness. The mind will be balanced and serene, and it will find fulfillment in itself. A contented mind is the surest sign of association with the holy. How can a wandering mind be considered as being surrendered to God? Therefore, with full concentration, O listeners, listen to the explanation with faith. By listening to the Sai Satcharita, let your mind be inclined towards devotion. Along with the narration, You will feel contented. Your wayward mind will find peace. Agitation will disappear and you will achieve happiness. Now, we will go back to the earlier thread of the story about the renovation of the masjid and the kirtan about the birth of Ram. Let us proceed with the narration. There was one devotee by the name of Gopal Gund who had great devotion for Baba. He spent his time in ceaseless chanting of Baba's name. He had no children. Later, with Sai's blessings, he begot a son. His mind was thus happy. So Gopal Gund thought of holding a yatra or an urus yearly in the Shirdi village. Everybody would be joyous. Tatya Kote, Dada Kote, Madhvarao and other leading devotees approved of this idea and began to make preparations. But for such annual festivals, there was a certain regulation. The permission of the district officer was required. When efforts were made to secure the permission, a perverse Kulkarni from the village went against them and put obstacles in the way. When the Kulkarni came in the way, look what was the result. The district officer issued an order that the yatra should not be held at Shirdi, but to hold this yatra in Shirdi was also Baba's wish and he had commanded them to fulfill this along with his blessings. The villagers persevered and tried their utmost. The authorities changed the earlier order and honored the wishes of the people. Since then, according to Baba's wish, the yatra takes place on Ram Navami. Tatya Kote looks after the arrangements and a large crowd gathers. On Ram Navami day, devotional singing and worship take place to the accompaniment of drums and other wind instruments. People flock there from all four quarters in large numbers. Every year, 2 new flags are ceremoniously carried in procession and tied to the dome of the masjid and permanently fixed there. Out of the 2, one would be Nimonkars and the other, Damoanas. They are taken with pomp in procession and they fly high on the top of the dome. Now listen to the interesting account of how the celebration of Ram Navami originated from the Urus, which is unusual. The pleasure and glory of Shirdi originating from the Urus, Ram Navami was celebrated for the first time in Sheikh, and, since then, it continues uninterruptedly to be held to this day. The famous Krishna Yogeshwar Bhishma was the originator of the idea of celebrating the birth of Ram, which he thought would be greatly beneficial for all. Till then, it was only the Urus for which the people participated. Since that year, the beautiful festival of the birth of Ram took place. Once, as Bhishma was peacefully sitting in the Wada, and Kaka was ready to leave for the masjid along with the puja paraphernalia, in his heart, he, Kaka, was thinking of Sai Darshan and outwardly he was enthusiastic about the Urus. Kaka had come a day earlier to Shirdi for the celebrations. Considering it an opportune moment, Bhishma asked Kaka, "Would you give me help for a good cause that has inspired me?" Here, every year, Urus is held on the day which is also the birth of KJ Bhishma Ram. Therefore, this is a natural opportunity to hold the ceremony of the birth of Ram. Kaka liked the idea and asked Bhishma to obtain Baba's consent. It would depend on his wish. Then, there would be no delay in the work. But for the celebration, there would have to be a kirtan. That was a problem, for where would one get a Haridas in a small village? That was the only question. Bhishma said, "I would be the Kirtanakar. You can accompany me on the harmonium." And Radha Krishna Bai would be prepared to make the Sunthwada at the proper time. Come then, let us go to Baba. Any delay for a good cause poses problems. A good cause accompanied by promptness will be executed efficiently. Come along, let us go and ask permission to perform the kirtan. So saying, they both arrived in the masjid. At that time, no sooner had Kaka begun the worship, Baba on his own asked what was the discussion going on in the wada, and Kaka could not think of an answer. Immediately Baba asked Bhishma the same question in a different way. What has Buva to say? Asked Baba of him. Then Kaka remembered and disclosed the intentions. Baba liked the idea and it was decided to hold the celebrations. Next day, early in the morning, seeing that Baba had gone to the Randi, a cradle was put in the courtyard with ceremonial preparations for the kirtan. The audience assembled. Later on, Baba returned on time. Bhishma got up. Kaka sat down at the harmonium. Then Baba sent for Kaka. Baba is calling you. Hearing this, Kaka got a shock. He could not understand what had happened. Let there not be a fiasco. On hearing Baba's call, Kaka became scared. Why has Baba become so angry? Will the kirtan take place without any difficulty? He walked ahead, casting backward glances. He climbed up the steps with fear. His steps were very timid. Kaka was extremely worried. Baba asked him a question as to why the cradle was tied here, and having learnt in brief the story, the reason behind it and the whole scheme, he was happy. Then, from the niche he took a beautiful garland and put it round Kaka's neck and gave another for Bhishma. Having heard the question about the cradle, there was anxiety all around. But when the garlands were put round the necks, everyone was at ease. Bhishma was a versatile man, well versed in narrating kathas. The kirtan was very enjoyable and all the listeners were very pleased. Baba too was very pleased. According to his consent, the festival had taken place, along with the bhajan, kirtan etc. At the time of the birth of Ram. The red gulal powder that was thrown about went into Baba's eyes and Baba became enraged. He looked terrible like Narahari at the hour when Rama was born in the palace of Kaushalya. The gulal was just an excuse. The action implied the fervor at the birth of Ram, who would destroy the ego in the form of Ravana, and wickedness in the form of Rakshas. Suddenly he was annoyed. He became, as it were, Narsimha. Then started abuses and curses, which were showered upon all. Radha Krishna Bai was quite concerned, as she thought that the cradle would be broken into pieces. How can it be kept intact? That was the difficulty she faced. Please untie, quickly untie, she was insistent. Kaka moved forward to untie the cradle. Then Baba got very angry and rushed forward towards Kaka. The untying of the cradle was forgotten and Baba regained his composure. When, in the afternoon, Baba's permission was sought, his answer surprised everyone. Why should you untie the cradle in such a hurry? It is still needed. What could this necessity be? Sai's words are never spoken in vain. When given thought, the realization dawned that the festival was not yet complete. The festival had progressed up to a stage, but till the dawn of next day and until the time of Gopal Kala, the festival could not be said to be complete. In this way, on the second day, after the Gopal Kala and the Kirtan, Baba gave his consent to untie the cradle. Next year, Bhishma was not available. Bala Bhuva Satarkar was to be brought for the Kirtan. but he had to go to Kavate. Therefore, Bala Buva Bhajani, known as the modern Tukaram, was brought by Kaka Mahachani and the festival was performed at his hands. Even if he, i.e., Bhajani, had not been available, Kaka would have performed the Kirtan, because he knew by heart the composition about Ramnavami composed by Das Ganu. In the third year, Bala Buva Satarkar himself came to Shirdi in time for the occasion. Listen to that incident with respect. Having heard of Sai Baba's fame, a desire arose to have his darshan, but he wanted company on the way, and was wondering how he would find someone. Bala Buva was himself a Haridas, Kirtanakar, who hailed from Satara but was living in Parel, Bombay, at this time. At Brihat Siddhakwate, in Satara district, there was a Devasthan, where Buva did Kirtan on Ramnavami Day, every year, for which he was paid annually every year. Bala Buva was connected with two annual festivals there, Ashadhi Ekadashi and Ramnavami, falling in the month of Chaitra. According to a charter of the Mughal emperor, a sum of 2,400 rupees had been allotted for the expenses of the deity, Bade Baba, and the arrangements were made by the institution. For these two festivals, Buva was paid as 30, but that year there was a cholera epidemic at Kavate and the villagers were in difficulty. Therefore, the Ramnavami celebrations were called off there. Buva received letters from there to come the next year as the village was deserted. In short, he lost the opportunity to serve Ram and did not also receive his allowance. But it gave him an opportunity to go to Shirdi and, therefore, he met Dikshit. Dikshit was a great devotee of Baba. The desire to go to Shirdi would be fulfilled if he takes it upon himself and, along with personal gain, spiritual benefits will be achieved. So he told Dikshit that, as his yearly stipend was temporarily held back, he had thought of having Baba's darshan and performing the kirtan there. Bhau Sahib then replied that there was no certainty of payment. To give or not to give was in the hands of Baba, and even for the kirtan, permission would be required. While this conversation was going on, Kaka Mahajani came along unexpectedly and distributed ori as prasad of Shirdi, and this was considered to be a good omen. Mahajani had just returned from Shirdi. He conveyed that all was well there and thereafter returned to his residence. Later on, Dikshit very lovingly told Buva that he would ask for Baba's permission and if it was granted, he would definitely let him know. As soon as you receive the letter, come to Shirdi. Do not worry about the traveling expenses. You will not have to bear them. Have no doubts about it. Later Dikshit proceeded, Bala Buva. Baba gave his permission. Bala Buva came to Shirdi and had darshan to his heart's content. Sai Baba got the elaborate festival of Ramnavami performed in his presence with great love at the hands of Bala Buva. Bala Buva was happy at heart. The objective had been fulfilled. Sai was also pleased. Thus everyone's wishes were fulfilled. His expectations were more than fulfilled. 150 rupees was ordered to be received by him, and Buva was extremely happy. Why shouldn't Bala Buva be happy, when Baba gave as much earnings as he would have had in 5 years in Kavate for one festival? Thus he was indebted to Baba. Later on, when Das Guru was once in Shirdi, Baba, on being so entreated, entrusted Das Guru with the performance of the kirtan at the festival every year. Since then, Till this day, the Janmotsav is celebrated with a lot of pomp and pageantry. Food is distributed to the heart's content and the poor and downtrodden are happy. At the main gate of the Samadhi Mandir, accompanied by the music played by the traditional instruments, like Changabda and Shehnai, the chant of Baba's name resounds in the skies and the atmosphere is suffused with joy. Just as he had thought of the Yatra and the Urus, Gopal Gund was inspired in the same manner, to give a new look to the old dilapidated masjid. As the devotee Gopal Gund decided to renovate the masjid by his own hands, he got the stones ready. But the renovation work was not ordained for Gund. The occasion for this auspicious work arose later appropriately. It appears that Baba wished that the renovation should be done by Nana Chandorkar, and afterwards the paving of the floor should be done by Kaka Dikshit. Accordingly, it happened later on. In the beginning, they had got tired of asking for the permission. Then they made Mahalsapati the mediator and Baba gave his permission. So be it. When the paving of the floor of the masjid was completed in one night, then the next day itself Baba came and sat on the gadi. It was in the year 1911 that the Sabha Mandap was constructed. It was a difficult and Herculean task. It involved a lot of hazards and people trembled with fear. This work was also completed by the devotees working at nights, in the same way and under similar circumstances. In the night, the pillars would be erected with great difficulty and in the morning Baba would start uprooting them. Again seizing the opportunity they would be re-erected. Thus, everybody got exhausted. Everyone girded up their loins, turned night into day, to fulfill their objective, undergoing a lot of exertion. Dikshit thought that the site was a proper place to construct the Sabha Mandap where there was earlier an open ground and a small playground, putting in as much money as was needed for iron columns and angle brackets. The work was finished, as and when Baba was at the Chavadi. The devotees would turn night into day and erect the pillars with much effort. But as soon as Baba returned from the Chavadi, he would pull them out. Highly incensed on one occasion, Baba caught Tatya by his neck with one hand and with the other shook a pillar and tried to uproot it. He loosened it by shaking it, removed the headgear of Tatya, kindled it by lighting a matchstick, and threw it into the pit with anger. At that time, his eyes looked like fireballs. Who would dare to look straight into them? Everyone had lost their courage. Immediately he put his hand in his pocket, took out a rupee and threw it there, as if to mark an auspicious moment. Curses and abuses were showered. Tatya was also very scared at heart. It seemed a very difficult situation. How had it all happened? All the onlookers were surprised and distressed. What is this bad omen today? How can this difficulty which has befallen Tatya be warded off? Bhagoji Shinde took courage and cautiously moved forward. He also fell an easy prey and was given a sound beating by Baba. Madhavarao was also caught by him and received a shower of brickbats. Whoever dared to intervene was similarly favored by Baba. Who would venture to go before Baba? And how could Tatya be rescued? As they were talking like this, Baba's anger subsided and he calmed down. Promptly a shopkeeper was called and a zari-bordered headgear was ordered. He, himself, tied it around Tatya's head, like a Raja who bestows a mark of favor. People wondered and did not know the reason for the anger and this attack on Tatya and the reason for Baba making this hullabaloo. What was the reason for getting angry and in the next few moments turning into a pleasant mood? The root cause could not be known by anyone. Sometimes he was calm and talked lovingly. Sometimes, for no apparent reason, in the twinkling of an eye, he would be agitated unexpectedly. So be it. Such are the stories of Baba. As I relate one, I recall another. Which should I narrate and which withhold? The tendency to diversify is not proper. I have no preferences and make no choice. Whichever story is appropriate for the occasion will fulfill the desire of the listeners and fill their hearts with joy. In the next chapter, listen to the tales gathered from the old people whether Baba was a Hindu or a Muslim. I shall repeat what I have heard as best as I can. How the money collected as Dakshina was utilized for renovation of old temples, and how he mortified his flesh through dhoti poti and khand yoga. How he toiled for the benefit of others and warded off the difficulties of his devotees will be clarified in the next chapter. The listeners will be pleased. May there be well-being. This is the end of the 6th chapter of, written by the devotee Hemadpant, impelled by saints and virtuous people. This is offered to Sri Sadguru Sai Nath. May there be auspiciousness.